Hello, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Family, it's indeed an amazing time. It's a new month, it's the month of June. Indeed, it's a beautiful Thursday afternoon. I am super elated, I am super excited for so many reasons. And I can see uh, a male guest in the building already. I'll be sending out the invite immediately. I'm super excited that she's here on time. Yes. Yes, Madam Sholakbe is here already. She'll be joining us in a bit. Absolutely love you.
Hello.
Hi, madam. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I am solid. I am solid. I like the fact that you're as excited as I am, so that's a good thing. The conversation is going. It already feels like it's going to be a very healthy conversation. You're most
Well,
welcome, madam.
thank you very much for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. We'll get into the conversation immediately, but first, let me do a quick introduction to all who are part of this live. This is the Lend Your Voice 1000 Voices for Autism series, proudly brought to you by AK Foundation for Autism. My name is Epic, and I'll be hosting this conversation with the amazing, the exceptional, the excellent, the beautiful Madam Solape Azazi, who is the finer face you can see on your screen. How you doing again, Madam? You're most welcome.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm solid. I'm solid. I'm thrilled. I'm about to be schooled, so I'm excited. Looking to learn more than anything.
Schooled. Will I
Yes,
say schooled? I won't say schooled. I will just say you're about to be taken on a journey that would expand your awareness and understanding of what it is like to wear or to be in another person's shoe. More
yes.
like that. Not
Love,
schooled.
perfectly said. Perfectly said. And it's not just me. It's all of us. All that who will be part of this live and all that will watch this even beyond now. So yes, Madam Sholakwe, it's amazing to have you. First things first, I want to say a big thank you to you for finding time to do this with us. I understand how crazy schedules is. This is a Thursday, it's a work week, and it's still noon. It's not even evening, but you have made yourself available because you understand the course, you understand the importance of conversations like this, and for that reason, we are genuinely grateful. We'll get
Thank
into
you.
the conversation immediately. Let's start. Let's start. I want to know so much. So let's start from your end. A quick introduction so the guys know. I think I have a fair knowledge of who you are, but people who are not aware who are part of this conversation, let's do a quick introduction, madam.
Okay, so I thought you were going to do the introduction, but
I
okay.
like to give my guests the honor to do it themselves, so they say all that they want people to know about them.
Okay, so let's start with, my name is Solape Azazi, like you already said. I am a passionate autism advocate. I'm a mom, first of all, to an 11-year-old who is on the autism spectrum. I am also an international behavior analyst. I am a qualified autism service practitioner on a supervisor level. I am a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats, but the first one is that I'm also an executive director of Cradle Special Needs Initiative. It's a nonprofit set up to increase and build awareness, acceptance, and also provide the necessary support for families of children with autism. What else? I'm also a children's book author and I'm a documentary film director. And quite recently, I journeyed into trying to provide inclusive policies, policies that would support better quality of life of individuals with autism and their families. So, yes, that's me in a nutshell.
That's more than a nutshell. Quite extensive. I love the fact that you wear a lot of hats because you understand the need for doing such. And we want to get into every facet of your personality and the work you have done. But we'll start with a little bit of a personal journey, right?
Yeah.
How did this all start for you? You are an autism advocate now, certified international behavior analyst, and so much more. But where
Yeah.
did it all start from? What inspired this journey for you?
Well, I would say my one driving force has always been my son, who is on the autism spectrum. He had his official diagnosis at age 3. And when we started this journey, I realized that not a lot of support was out there for families of children with autism. And even though, they give you the diagnosis, they don't really point you to where you needed to be. And again, that's one of the reasons why I started my journey as a parent navigator, trying to connect parents and families with resources that they need and also support and guide them along the journey of the along the autism journey. Because when we came on board, it was a struggle to find where we needed to go, who we needed to talk to, which support was out there beyond, okay, the child has autism. How do you support the family? Because again, for most of us coming on the journey, we're probably this is the first time we're actually having a physical direct contact with this. But there was no hand holding, there was no, okay, this is how it goes, this is where you go to, and all of that. So it was a lot of struggle. There was nobody checking in on your mental health, your mental well-being, where you are, what position you are in. Are you doing a lot in terms of self-care? Are you, ensuring that you're not pouring out from an empty container, because you can only give what you have. There was nobody bridging the gap of, between awareness and understanding. There was nobody helping you and ensuring that on that journey you are thriving. On that journey, you and your family are thriving. And that was very important because when we came in, it was so, okay, you've given me a diagnosis, what next?
What next?
And then, yes, and then again, you start the journey of, okay, these are the people that you need to talk to in terms of services and support. And then you start to see that some of those services and support are not even tailored to your child's need.
Needs.
Again, because you are your child's first advocate, you're your child's first teacher, you're your child's first doctor, nurse, everything. You know when it's hurting, So you know that certain things are just not tailored to it's too generalized, and so you're looking and wondering, and then it would. I mean, that was what propelled me into the journey of, okay, you know what? Let's understand this. If we are saying you are giving behavioral intervention for my child, what does it mean? What does this behavior intervention mean? Okay, let's learn it. Let's see it. Let's understand it. Okay, why are we doing what is the why behind this? Okay, we're saying that we're doing it to increase his communication. How is this? How are we measuring this intervention that we're giving? Are we using the SMART approach? Is it specific to his needs? What is the timeline for all of this? So again, those are the things that propelled me onto this journey.
Interesting. And it's a very, how do I put it? It's a very common phenomena, especially in Nigeria that we live in.
Mm,
People, a lot of people who have children on the spectrum usually tend to say these things. That's why we thought of as a foundation, as part of our avenues to ensure that these conversations are had. This was one of the reasons that we particularly decided to spring up a series like this, because people tend to look for these things, and people, as you have said, these things are not readily available all the time to everyone. But I like how you have addressed that. We'll talk about your personal journey for a bit as a mother with a child on the spectrum. Your son was diagnosed at 3. Let's let's,
yes.
let's get into that for a bit. Let's get into that. Let's get into a list
Okay.
for a
So
bit.
I will take
At that
you
time,
back. I'll take you
yeah,
back to
at
before
that
we
time,
got the official diagnosis. Again, I keep saying he had an
yes,
official diagnosis at age 3, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't flagged down way before that.
exactly. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, what were the things you noticed in his behavioral engagements from 1 to that prompted the courage to, go request for a proper diagnosis? How was the interaction that, and
Mm,
beyond, after the diagnosis, how was it for the family? How did
yeah.
you respond? How did his father respond? Did he have siblings? How did they respond to that conversation? Uncles, aunties, how did the family respond or react to that? diagnosis of it.
Okay. Okay, absolutely. I'll take you through that. My son met all the is the firstborn for me, but not the first in the family. We come from a very large family with lots of grandchildren and siblings and stuff. So is the first for me, but not the first in the family. And when he was born, he met all the milestones actually. He talked when he was supposed to, he crawled when he was supposed to, you know, he met all the, so he didn't have anything that would, cause me to say, oh, I need to be watchful or look at some developmental milestone here and there, that kind of thing. Because I didn't see a need for that, right? And I do recall that at age 15, he was using the right amount of words to communicate
Okay.
per a 15-month-old baby. So again, I didn't have issues with that. But looking back, again, I say looking back because, with what I know now, and then you do like a lot of flashback, then you start to see that some things were not adding up. So at age 18 months, I know that the child should have been stringing two words or even bigger sentences, but it wasn't expanding as much as it should. So the words that he had prior were there, but it wasn't expanding. The vocabulary was not expanding as it should, as you would
Okay.
expect it to. And then at 20 months, he just lost all the vocabulary because we had more of crying to communicate. He wouldn't use words, and you would be in a room with him you can be in a room with him the entire day and you will absolutely forget that you have a child in the house. And now these are red flags. I mean, no, based on what I know now, because a 20-month-old
20 months.
child should be boisterous, especially when you have a 20-month-old boy. They should be climbing, running, jumping, activity here and there. It's not
True.
quiet, it's not silent, they are engaging, they're having shared engagement with you, pulling you to notice what they're noticing, communication here and there. But then as of 20 months, the words have reduced drastically. We had more of crying as a form of communication. You want something, you're crying a lot. And then around that time, we had lots of allergies. We had allergies here and there coming up, and but I think, being a first time mom,
This time,
I think, yes, and being a first time mom with only him, and only me and him as the adults engaging together, I didn't read a lot to it. Again, because he has met all of his milestones way before that time. So I just thought maybe he was just going through a lot, and then, when he cries, it's probably, I didn't read a lot to that until one day, I think my sister-in-law was in the house with me, and then she was like, is your son in this house? And I was like, yes. It's like, that's very weird because as a 20-month-old baby, your I should feel your existence. You understand that kind of thing? As in, you shouldn't be that quiet and So I was like, yeah, that kind of thing. But then that brought on my awareness, and then I started to notice, and with all the crying and the crankiness, and then I then started to notice that he's not even using words to communicate anymore at that time. It was just cry for this, cry for that, and all of that. And so when it was time for him to go for his well kids checkup with this pediatrician, all of these were things that was said to the pediatrician, like, oh, and then that was when he did his own check, and then it was like, oh, that they would have to flag him down for autism. That I think what I'm experiencing here is regressive autism. And then when he said that, I went on Professor Google. What is autism?
very well, Professor Google indeed, especially at that time. I mean, most recently they'll say Professor Chat GPT, but yeah, at that time Professor
Yeah,
Google is
that time it was
yes,
Professor Google. But if it
Professor
was
Google
now,
is
the
very
first thing you will say, ChatGPT, help me. But then in those times was Professor Google,
Yeah.
and then, then when the doctor told me and all of that, because he did his own assessment, and it was like it's too young for him to give a diagnosis of what is happening. But what he would suggest for us to do is to get him into an early intervention program, and what he would suggest recommend is we get it into a speech and language intervention program for him at that time, because again, this is a child that I have videos of that will say happy. I mean, when he wants the apple, he will say apple, things like get up, get down, carry me, mama. All of a sudden, it's a child that is not even using any of those words anymore, and so one of the things that said was that, okay, we need to, start working on his social interaction. It needs to be exposed more to more people as opposed to only me and, dad and all of that, that it needed to, be more with, so again, we had to put in preschool, those daycare, not preschool,
Daycare.
daycare, yeah. So immediately we put in daycare, and then, so that I can, we can start to measure and monitor and stuff like that. But again, go on Google, and the first thing they tell you is that, oh, early signs of autism, and flapping. My child wasn't doing hand flapping. Spinning, he wasn't doing spinning. So a lot of things were just not adding up, but they told me, this is what it is, and so, but then when in retrospect, when I look back to it, I remember that, because with autism, you have social interaction, social communication, you have repetitive or restrictive behavior, you have sensory differences. So when you look back at it, right, and then look at each component individually, I would see that indeed we had those signs. Again, apart from the visible communication issue and interaction issue, right? He would want to watch only a 30-second part of a video that he likes, and it will repeat the 30 seconds, and it will repeat the second, that he wants. So if you look at it, that is repetitive behavior there, right? He just wanted that thing, that one part that made him smile and laugh and whatever. Or, again, Google will say they have um, attachment to something, or they don't want food mixed up. My son didn't have any of those things, but I did know that he had lots of allergies to food. Like he had. So by then we did like an allergy panel test, and we realized that was allergic to this, that, which we had to knock off from his list of food. And by knocking it off, again, when you start to talk to people, they say you put him on a diet, but then the doctor says you can't put him on a diet because he's not even eating any of the regular things he's supposed to be eating, right? So if you put him on a diet, what is he going to be eating? You're going to have to supplement. So you have to put, and he's still young, he's still growing. Again, so I mean, I'm just going back and forth into what I know now and what was happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that the doctor had said, start to put speech therapy intervention in. However, you can get an official diagnosis until age 3, because that's when they can actually look at all the other, faculty, and then decide really whether this is what's going on or if it's more than that, And so for one whole year after the initial flag down to the official diagnosis, it was misery. Because not only was I trying to be a professor, trying to Google and find out what was wrong with my child and how I can help my child, and then also you have to think about the family dynamics, because it was the first child within the family to ever have an autism diagnosis, right? So I had to help. So initially I was struggling. Everybody was struggling along the way, because again, if you don't tell people how to help you, how can they help you the right way you want to
Exactly.
help? They will just assume this is what you want, and then they will give you that help. But you know that that's not the kind of help you want. So it will grate on your nerves, because you're like, I don't need that. So not only was there like a communication issue within the home front, because I'm like, they're not even hearing me. Like I am drowning in depression, I'm drowning in what ifs, I'm drowning in did I cuss this, I'm drowning in could I have how can I get my child to be where he needs to be? And again, in the space of that period, I had another child. Yes. So he has a younger brother. So again, so it wasn't postpartum because again, people were like, oh, I said it wasn't postpartum because I knew it wasn't postpartum. Doctor didn't call it postpartum, but I was depressed because I just felt like I was in a world of my own and I couldn't communicate what I needed to be where I need to be. And this was right about the time when I was supposed to go back to work, so everything was just like it wasn't adding up. It wasn't. But what I realized was that I was pushing away the people around me because they were like, they can't get it right with me anyway. So when I'm ready, I'll do what I need to do. Right. Because you are nagging. I've known my husband since 2000. We've been close to each other, best friends. We grew up together. And then for the first time in our lives, we're not understanding, we're not speaking the same language. So you say A and I'm hearing B, D, E, F, G, that kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, like you were just, everything was clashing. But what happened for me was I needed to pause and stop. Because I remember vividly, it was when my youngest son turned 6 months. And I looked at him and I realized that 6 months had gone in a blur. And I don't really recall what was significant about 6 months. Because I was in my world, stuck in my head, carrying all the weight and everything on myself. And not, trying to move the space forward. And again, everybody's like, we are trying to help her, that kind of thing. So, and then I looked at my son because his own world revolved around my world because he was solely dependent on mommy knows what to do. Mommy knows how to help. Mommy. So again, that on its own was a lot of pressure for me. So I needed to first pause and then just get myself to where I needed to be in terms of my mental state, in terms of my health, in terms of understanding what I need and understanding how to ask for help. I need to understand that I'm not on the journey alone. The people that can help me, they just don't know what sort of help to give me.
How to come in.
Yeah. And so when I realized that, and then I did a lot of self-discovery of myself, I started to know where I needed to help. So I would go and say, can you help me do this? Can you watch this? Can you, again, building my tribe, building my community, building my family. And as I grew on that journey, I was educating myself and I was educating my community. Okay, this is what's happening. This is how we can do this. This is what we can do differently. This is how we can help him. And so that sort of changed the dynamics because I realized that I first had to understand my current situation and accept what is, not what was, not what should be, but what is.
In the moment.
And then in the moment, and then start to chart a new reality. But as I chart the new reality, I have to make sure that I'm not leaving anybody behind. So, okay, this is the new reality. Husband, this is it. Family members, this is how we are moving forward. This is how we're going to address this. This is how we're going to build this. This is, do you understand what I'm saying? So again, with doing that, it helped me get better mentally, get better emotionally, seek the right support that I needed. And I didn't do it alone because as I was on the journey, I found people that I could call my own tribe and my own support who were on the journey ahead of me and were able to tell me it gets better with time, or these are the things that we've done. This is how we have done it. This is, again, strength. You know that adage that says that when you have one broom, it will break, but when you have a bunch of broom, to break it is harder. So again, that was what I needed, and that lifted me from where I was to where I am today.
Except, really, you said, first things first, I want to commend I want to commend the efforts that it took at that point, because I feel like you can talk about it now so seamlessly, but in the moment then, it took a lot of mental strength, because you committing to relationships, committing to services, servicing your, providing the service that your child needed, attending to family and all that. It must have taken a lot from you mentally and physically, and I want to commend your strength to navigate that significant phase in your life so
Thank you.
effortless. It's beautiful to see that how you have navigated it and conquered basically beyond that. There's something you mentioned, which is not something that a lot of people talk about. And I actually wanted to ask this because I saw something like that on while I was doing my research. I was trying to spy into your life a bit, but I saw a little bit of that. And it's something that you have said here. For a lot of parents, there's usually the conversation about, is it whose fault is it?
Yeah.
When diagnosis has happened.
Mhm.
How did you, if you felt that way, and how can parents, mothers, fathers, and both together overcome the guilt that comes with the revelation of that diagnosis? Because for some parents, it does exist. There's blame games from family members, and unfortunately, if there's one negative family member, he might say some things, and parents on their own right tend to feel like it's their fault sometimes. How do they overcome that for parents who feel that way?
So, yeah. So, yes, I mean, when you are going, the journey from awareness to acceptance is not just, oh, I'm aware that this is going on, and boom, I've accepted it. You have to go through this process of self-guilt. You have to go through grief, because you have to grieve what you think you have and what you've lost. So all of that process is a process. And a lot of times people still get stuck on the process of, they're still grieving, and that's why they haven't accepted it, and they're still saying maybe it's my fault or whatever. Again, for healing to happen, you have to let go of that self-doubt or guilt or whatever you may call it. So for me, that was what happened. Yes, did I blame myself? Yes, there's no mother in this world that they will say something is wrong with your child, and the first question that will pop into your head would not be, did I cause this? Could I have avoided this? Was it something I did that made this happen? That is a normal reaction. However, with education and awareness comes the reality and acceptance that you did not cause this. It was not an action of what you did or what you did not do. Again, because you have to remind yourself constantly that even as of today, there is no definitive cause of autism. As of today, today is what date? 5th of
With
June,
2020.
2025. Even the Americans are still trying to figure
A lot of
out what causes autism. So when you are stuck in the process of saying to yourself, did I do something wrong? You are still in that self guilt, denial. You haven't reached that acceptance stage. Hi, Esther. So you haven't reached that acceptance stage. And for me, I felt like I needed to get to that space of understanding. Like I said, with the all self-awareness comes the acceptance, comes the education. So when you have educated yourself well enough to know that I did not cause this, then the burden of guilt starts to ease off you. And as it eases off you, you shine differently. You speak differently because you start to speak with some form of intelligence. And then the people around you are willing to engage. Because I think I was at a seminar one time, and then the person was talking about advocacy, and there was like, oh, they did X, Y, and Z. Yeah, she went gum blazing, and I'm like, it's not every time that you have to come out with the fist up. Because when you do that, you realize that not everything is solved. But when your actions show truly your understanding of the situation, and you're ready to come, you would see that that person on that other side will first calm down. Again, I'm talking towards the part that you're saying that maybe the people around you are not still on the same journey or on the same
Yeah.
understanding with you. So you've let go of the self-guilt, but they are still believing and thinking you caused it. But if you live on that same plane with them, you can't move forward. And then you definitely cannot help your child. Because in everything, you have to remember that it is the child that is the focus here. It's not you. You are helping, you are giving the voice to the child that doesn't have a voice yet to advocate for his needs. So engaging with them on that plane is counterproductive. I would say fix your self-guilt, fix yourself, work on yourself. Believe that that fault, it's not your fault. My child has autism is no fault of mine. However, what I do from this moment
Moment.
determines, yes, will dictate the outcome for my child. So let my behavior, let my actions, let my decisions speak. This is how I want you to treat my child. This is how I want you to accept my child. My child is not the problem. My child my child is not the problem. It is your emotions that is the problem. So my child is favored. My child is special. My child is loved. And when I'm saying that, your actions are saying it, not just, oh, I'm verbally saying, oh, my child is different, or oh, I'm accepting of my child. The way you behave, the way you project yourself. Because again, it's your action that people would look at. You mean that that child that is like that is drooling, that is this, that is that, and the mother is just holding it like, what's going on? So it pulls them to come and understand why you're doing it. And so when they come to check it out and see what you're doing, then you can engage and dialogue with them if they are willing to
Very
dialogue. If they are not willing to dialogue, you shouldn't take it upon yourself to say, oh, do not be affected, but it's your child, that child that you need to take care of. That's your focus. Yeah.
well said. Very importantly, it is what you do, as you've said. I love it. It's what you do after, because what has happened has happened. Your child's situation is what it is. They're not, and they're not less. They're different. They're special children. So
Yeah.
it's we found ourselves in this situation. So what we do after definitely impacts on the life of the child. Speaking of actions, we'll still talk extensively about your son. There's still a couple of things I want to know. But since you're already at the action point, let's talk about the work being done at Cradle Lounge. It's it's a conversation. It's a part of this conversation I was excited to get to.
Yeah.
How's it so far? Because we understand now your inspiration behind the journey. Now deciding to do this for others, to become a parent navigator, to do this with Cradle Launch. How's it been like? What have been challenges faced along the road? What has been successes recognized? Quite a number of them across your page, but I want to hear from you personally. What are the
So,
stood out
I mean,
significant?
I would say that I have had good reception, very good reception. It's been received by people around me warmly, because this, for me, I mean, it's a conversation that needs to be had. And for me, every year I look at, we reevaluate ourselves at Cradle Lounge and say, look, are we achieving what we set out to do? Our goal is to increase awareness, to improve the quality of lives of people living with autism and their family. Our goal is to ensure that no one is left behind. Our goal is to promote inclusion on all levels. Our goal is to make sure that every child does not think they are less. Our goal is to make sure that every caregiver is not thinking she's alone on that journey. Our goal is to make sure that we make every caregiver on this journey understand that whatever you're going through, whatever your child is going through is no fault of yours. However, with the right support and the right intervention, your child can thrive.
Right.
So Yes. And so with that at the back of our minds, every year we're checking, we're evaluating. I mean, I remember that so I wrote this book. It's called My Friend Has Autism.
Friend as autism.
Yes. And I wrote that book 2 years ago. And the inspiration behind the book was before now we are engaged with adults, of children. So our advocacy had really been on the level of adults, and then we did a lot of inclusive play with children. So we'll do a lot of inclusive engagement, holiday plays with children, holiday clubs, just make sure that, other children gets the chance to interact with our differently abled children, right? And then we would go out and then talk to the adults, the parents and stuff. And what we realized when we were reevaluating ourselves and our mission was that a lot of times when the conversation gets trickled down from adults to children, it's not the same as how a child to a child would understand what we're talking about, right? Because they want to, either use big grammars to, or they want to look for a way to minimalize the whole thing. It's what it is, right? Another thing we also observed was that I think that was the year that the CDC came up with the statistics for 1 in 36 children has autism. And it was a big one for us because when we started the journey, it was 1 in 54 children. And then I'm like, whoa, that's a big jump,
That's a big
right?
jump.
It was a big jump. And I was like, okay, so if that is the case, then our our kids are already in spaces where other children do not understand what is going on, right? And it's time to start to have the conversation on a children's level in a way that children can understand and be empathic towards their fellow children in their environment. It's time to start to build advocacy on that level with children. And that inspired that book. It's a very colorful, childlike book. You pick it up, you don't even know. I think the word autism doesn't appear until maybe page 4 or 5 of the book. So it's just like a regular storybook. But what it's trying to aim at is the understanding, building the friendship, helping the child to know the other child. So it's not even written from the angle of a child with autism. It's written from a neurotypical child in a school. Meaning that it's not even, the focus is not about this child with autism. The focus is about you, that you should try to make your space inclusive enough to be accepting of our children that are already within your spaces. Right. So that inspired that book, which was widely accepted. A lot of people read it and liked it. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. This is a different take on this,
Very good.
And yeah. And then we moved on. And then last year, I decided that, when we came on the journey and then I started, remember I said I went on Professor Google, I didn't see a lot of documentary or articles or stories telling about the Nigerian perspective of autism or what is happening within our spaces and stuff, and how, not much was said in that space. I mean, that was 2 years ago that we decided to do the documentary, not last year, but last year was when the documentary got premiered anyways.
We're talking echoes of hope now.
Yes, we're talking echoes of yes. So that then now started that conversation, like, okay, a lot of times we spotlight and then we'll spotlight people that have done so fantastic on the autism journey abroad. I think we will talk about we talked about the guy that can draw from just one view, from the helicopter view, and then he comes and he draws. But we do have success stories. I mean, recently we had Kai Tagochukwu, who just did a fantastic job. I mean, but we don't promote our own local stories here. And then, the power of storytelling. it's something that we underplay in our spaces here, but it's something that can do so much more on our journey of advocacy, on our journey of acceptance. Imagine a mom that is just coming on that journey, sees that, oh, not all some children can thrive in this area, not every time, book. There's also Moniyi, Adewale. Moniyi is such a fantastic musician. He will play, he has a band. You understand? So again, the purpose is to tell you that it's not all of them that will focus on art. Like for example, Esther is on the call now. I think her name is Buzi Sule. Her son Ziza is a fantastic artist who has gone ahead to have solo exhibitions, and that hasn't stopped her. It hasn't removed the autism, but it has helped her to create a path for a child to thrive, right? So I felt like a lot wasn't said about the people thriving, and we needed to give more hope to the people coming on the journey. And then the whole essence of you doing that documentary was, you sit across from a doctor's office, for example, and they just told you your child has autism, and then they share that link with you. That link is for you to watch and understand what they're saying. So you have heard the professionals. So on that link, you will hear professionals talk. You will hear people share the story of how their journey started. You will hear people tell you about how they are still on that journey. And then you will hear people tell you about how their son has gone ahead to become a professor in math. Mrs. Akonde, for example, her son is a doctor of mathematics and statistics or something like that. Imagine that. And he's autistic. Again, it's to share hope. It's not all of our kids that have gotten to that end. And also, it's also to remind the parents that, look here, it's not all the children that would get this. However, if you put the right intervention, there's hope. And that was what inspired that documentary. Then, when we shared the documentary, we realized that there was a big gap also, because while we were working on the documentary, we realized that there was a big issue within the grassroots. So you're talking about autism and awareness and talking on the surface, but you're not engaging the common market person.
At the core.
The cleaner, yes, at the core of it all are the people at the grassroots that are even struggling to get proper health care, and you're telling them, come and pay for a behavior therapy. Come and pay for speech therapy. Come and, again, because a lot of us, there is a lot of people that are saying, oh, they've recorded successes and all paid out of pocket. So what is happening on that level? How are we making sure that we are bridging the gap? Again, I've had people tell me that autism is a disease of the rich man. I remember when I started this journey, when we first got our diagnosis and I started talking and everything, someone did come to me and say, it's a disease for the rich man. And I was blown away, because autism has no social, it doesn't recognize any social status. It's the same thing that can happen to the meat seller, to the pepper seller. It's the same thing that is happening to the person living in Banana Island. It's the same governor child. It don't respect it. It's just, how is it being managed? Is the management that will determine the results.
The results, yes.
And when you tell someone, thank God they just increased the minimum salary to 70K, but it's not. I had this said to me as, yes, so, hey, someone told me. She said she had it said to her. I'm telling you, someone told me that it's a rich man disease. When you're thrown back, and then you can't blame them, right? Imagine then it was, what was the minimum salary, minimum monthly? It was 35,000 now. So you tell, thank you. So you tell someone that has 4 children, earning a minimum wage of 33,000 naira, that your child has autism? She will say, no, let's go to church. So she will go to church and buy anointing oil, anointing water, go and sleep in church every day with that child, buying the anointing oil and anointing oil, because for her, anointing oil is how much? They tell you, oh, this anointing oil is 1,000 naira. Anointing water is 1,000. You know, again, for her, it's more realistic to spend that 5,000 naira with the pastor and say, Pastor, pray for my child every day. One day, something will happen. Than for her, because where is she going to go? There's no recourse to government in the sense that you tell her to go and get services. There's no free services. The one free service that we have in Lagos is at Oshodi, and is overwhelmed. It's overwhelmed. You see people come all the way from Badagry to come and get services from that place. One of the ladies I interviewed come all the way from Ojo on that documentary. Again, for us, that was how this grassroots engagement started. She comes from Ojo to Oshodi, and she can only get appointment every 3 months. How is that going to change the dynamics for a child? She gets appointment every 3 months, comes from Ojo. She leaves her house at 4 a.m. so that she can make sure she's at Oshodi before 7, because at 7 o'clock they rule the line. So if your name is not written before 7, you can't get services. But then can you blame them? Because see the amount of people they have to see that day. You also have to be fair on them. They can't see all those. It's a strain on them too. So they have to tell you how many they can see that day, realistically, and attend to. And then she gets her appointment, and then next 6 months, 3 months. If she misses the 3 months, whatever, 6 months, please tell me how something can change in that situation. But when you look at the Western world, where do they contact their services? From their local council. We don't have that existing here. And so we said to ourselves, why don't we approach the local government councils and start to work in collaboration with these councils and see how best we can provide services at that local level, that's grassroots, that immediate level. And so we started with, I think our first pilot was Etiosa local government last year, and it was widely received. I mean, we offered a 4-day free therapy session for people within that space, and we recorded over 100 families that we attended to, meaning that this is something they want. We did a poll, we did a survey actually. We opened up a survey, and it was up for, I think, a week, and we asked people, how would you like to receive services? I mean, what are the barriers that impede you from receiving services? There was the financial, there was this, there was that, but people said distance was a big issue for them also. Distance to get to where the services are. So if you bring the services to them, they will get the services. You know, and it was well received. In fact, I think this year we're going to about 2 other local governments. That is how much impact that can make. And I tell people, just a drop is enough.
It is.
Wherever you find yourself, bloom where you are planted. You don't need to say, until I get to Jigawa or Nasarawa or whatever, that's when I would, bloom. Where you find yourself, bloom, inspire, work, help others to be where they need to be. And I'm telling you, if we all are doing what we can do within our spaces, our children will get a better quality of life. That's for sure.
I completely agree. Brilliant work. I must commend the Cradle Lounge. Brilliant work. So many huge achievements, particularly figuring out a way to, as you said, direct these conversations and take them to the rural areas to talk to the people that who might not majorly have access to the most grand hospitals and stuff or healthcare assistance, but taking this conversation to them is very important. And also, as you have said, you addressed about echoes of hope. There's a lot of people who have done significant things in this space here in Nigeria that don't have the platform to express themselves. Or
Yeah.
this conversation some time ago, we had Dr. Wokolo, who has worked actively in this space. She also has a child on the spectrum that she has trained and graduated. Is a graduate today. So these are significant conversations that need to be had, and we love the fact that platforms like yours are also doing what you can to ensure that these conversations are had and this awareness is brought to these things. We'll get into something you said because something you said inspired me to ask my next question. While you were talking about some special activity, talents that some of these children might have, right? Some days ago, our foundation attended an event, and there was this brilliant child who's on the spectrum. If you mention a date to him in the year, he will
Yeah.
tell you the day you were. He will tell you that day was special. It was mind blowing, and we tend to
Yeah.
have all this conversation. So with you being a mother of a child on the spectrum, what are the unique qualities that your child exhibited, whether as strengths or as because you've worked with your child for a while? Were there any unique qualities that were particular to him that you would like to fill us in on?
Yes, my son also is an artist. I mean, he's done 3 exhibitions so far, and it's been widely, received. The last one he did was with Pure Souls Learning Foundation, and we exhibited 20 pieces of artwork from him, and I can tell you that he sold 18 pieces of the 20 pieces. So, so again, for me, and how did we discover this? So, for us, my son is a visual learner. So, if he can see it, yes, go create. So yes, if you want to follow him, his Instagram account is Creator Azazi. You can follow him. You can find out more about how to support his works. Yes. So he's a visual learner. So if he can see it, then he understands it. So if he can't see it, he doesn't know what you're saying. And we use this method when we started speech therapy. So we did a lot of text, that's picture exchange communication with him. So we did from level 1 all the way to level 4. So you give me a picture, you get the item you want, and then we put a lot of pictures of all the things that you needed in places that you can access them. If it's in the kitchen, we have pictures in the kitchen about food, about different things. We have pictures about the schedules, what you need to be doing. We have pictures to teach him the steps involved in different things. And because he could see it, he understood what was expected of him. So the expectations of him were clearly stated. Now, we took it a level further because we knew that he liked to color, but I think it started with comprehension, and he was 5 years old then, if I recall. Yeah, I recall correctly. He was 5, and he had gone for his speech assessment, and his speech pathology was working with him, and then they were working on nursery rhymes because he was singing some nursery rhymes. And the speech pathology gave him a piece of paper and said to him, "Okay, I think it was Jack and Jill. I can't remember what the nursery rhyme was." And gave him a piece of paper, and he drew the narrative of the nursery rhyme. And so she asked the question. Yes, it was Jack and Jill. And she says, "Okay, I can see they're going up the hill. What happened next?" Gave him another piece of paper, and he drew Jill fell down to the end of the hill, and Jack on the midway of the hill. That is, they
Trying to
were
go up.
going up and they are now down. So for me, that was mind blowing, and that was for me a window, because what it meant was that he understood what you're saying, but he struggled with how to express it to you. However, if you give him an alternative way to express what you are saying, then he can get it done. And so we moved on to using pictures of stuff to augment his comprehension, especially in areas of, because he struggles with comprehension. So we'll tell him, maybe you read a story and you tell him what does he understand. He should draw his understanding of that story. He will draw it for you. And then you tell him, oh, okay, so what happens next? And then it also helps us because when we then realized that we needed to move him to a more, okay, we're doing sentence building and sentence expanding and all of that, we then moved to colorful semantics. So because colorful semantics was color-coded questions, again, building on the fact that he's a visual learner, so he knew that when you say woo, it is a red. When you say this, it is yellow. So again, it helped his understanding. It helped his understanding of your expectation of him. And then he could thrive within that space in terms of academics. So I was like, okay, great. So what can we do with this? Because I have realized that your strength is the visual skills. That is your major strength. And so we've started to use your strength to augment other areas of your lifestyle, of your life, right? All the areas that we see that you're struggling, we've used your strength to help you be able to assess, to give you access to your environment, right? Good. So now I think I went for the first art exhibition by Pure Souls. And I was amazed because I was like, oh, these young people could put up these pictures and draw so well. Okay, interesting. But I didn't think too much of it. Then I went for the second one, and then I sat down with Mrs. Atunde and I said, Priya actually does all of this, and this is how he understands stuff. However, we haven't looked at it as, okay, can we pursue art? Because again, that was his favorite class, his favorite subject. In fact, up until today, you would always find him in the art room, or you would always find him in my study with a paper and pencil and crayon and what he would, that is it. Wherever you find Priya, you always find Priya with a notepad and a pencil, because that is how he decompresses. That is how he self-regulates. That is how he sees the world. That is how he engages with his environment. Yeah. So for us, I then now spoke to Mr. Kanye and said, this is going on. And he said, explore it now. See how he can do with a proper art, class, and see how he does. So even during online COVID, blah, 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 my son will not sit for any online session. However, we tried online session for art classes, and he will sit through 1 hour of online art class. He will follow the instructions. The teacher is, because again, for him, all they are doing is they draw a line, you sees it, he copies it. They connect the line, he sees it, he copies. So don't ask me too much question. Don't tell me, show me where is the light ray coming from? Is this shadow? Is this? Don't ask me. Just draw the line and follow you and draw it. Do this one, I see it. That kind of thing. Like, don't engage. Don't give me plenty words to engage with you. And he looked forward to every Saturday art class online. So I was like, okay, great. I sat down with myself and I said, what's the career possibilities here? What are the pros and cons? Again, because I have a background in HR, so in my head, I'm always looking at career projection, what can be, all those things are always in my head, all those things. So I sat down and I was like, okay, so what's here? This is his strength. How can we leverage on his strength and make sure he thrives? What can we do to make sure that he has a good quality of life beyond whatever is holding him back, beyond whatever is, his areas of struggle and whatever, And I realized that there's endless possibilities in that area if I can nurture it. And we started the journey. The first year he exhibited, I think, yeah, he just exhibited like 6 pieces. He sold about 4. Next year he exhibited, he did like maybe how many pieces? Maybe 10, maybe like 4 or 5 he sold. And then this year, cumulative of everything he has just been doing and doing, we just put everything out and voila. And it just keeps going and getting better. You see him, he'll just like, this is it, this is it, this is what I want to do. This is the color I think this thing should look like. It's not, even if you tell him that maybe the sun is supposed to be orange or whatever, he says it's supposed to be red. I don't know. Say, so this is it's red, we are painting it.
But it's
Yeah. So again, that's it.
it's beautiful to recognize the growth that has been experienced through every stage, and I think that's why we share stories like people can see, you know, people can see that there is it's a journey. We started
Mhm,
so we are going somewhere. We'll count milestones. We'll record a lot of them, and
mhm.
while living it, we don't have to be gloomy and do all of that. Your son is 11. Before we get into that, let me just quickly say this: if you have questions for Madam Shalakwe, please do also drop them in the comment section. We've been on here for quite a while and we're taking your questions. We're rounding off, so we'll try to speed a couple of things as we go forward. But yes, if you have any questions, please do also share and I'll relate to her before we leave here. Yes, Madam, I was saying, yes, your boy is 11 now. Diagnosis happened at the age of 3, so that's about 8 years actively. You have handled this. Let's talk about the everyday life experiences, right? How does Priye communicate? I want to eat. How does he express joy, frustration, affection? How does it beyond? I've seen that art is a significant part of this thing, but I want to get into everyday life experiences and how you manage them, and when you are not available, who manages them?
Okay, so disclaimer, Priye talks. Okay,
Oh,
so yeah, so but yes, he is a gestural talker, meaning that he can use one word to sum up all that is going on and whatever, and he would use, so he has limited communication skills. Does not mean that he can talk or he can communicate. He has a very good receptive language skills but limited expressive language skills. Limited because it is not on his age brackets in the sense that you won't engage him in a conversation, a long conversation, and he's like, however, if he likes a topic, like we're talking about maybe the planet, the solar system, all
okay.
those something,
Kind of.
something, and you say, oh, that was this one. Now you say, this is the X. The X is round. Okay, now what's the color of the X? Now like back and forth trade like that, and then he would have those simple conversation with you. If he likes you, he will hang out with you. He's a very, very friendly person. I always say something to people that Priye smile can stop a war. He has the most amiable smile. When he smiles, you can't help but smile back. And he's a guy's guy. He's a friendly person. Like, I think in his class, he won most amiable person in his class. Because again, like his friends, he has friends. Like, so there was one time he had to go for a party, and because they're all getting like older and stuff, it was a 9-year-old birthday party or something like that, or maybe 10, I can't remember. 10-year-old or 9-year-old, I can't remember. And they said they were playing video game. It was a video game party. I was like, you don't play video game. How is he going to cope in this party now? And they, the way they are, with him and his friends, they're like, once he gets there, you hear him, hey, pray, and it you feel like, that kind of thing. So,
Actually,
yeah. So, we went for the party, and then I said, me, I will stay back as a because I noticed that parents are not staying back. I said, I will stay back, I'll stay in Palo. Don't worry, you go and play your game. I'll engage with the because they were like, immediately got there, they were like, oh, no, 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 they're all going into the room to go and play, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, video game, cool, okay, let's see. Next thing he went in, okay, yeah, it was a 10-year-old birthday party. Yeah, I remember. And so he went, the boy is a year older than him. So he went in so he went with them, they just dragged him, all of them went into the room. After about 10 minutes, my son has not come out. So I said, "Ah, let me even go and see what's happening in that room." I opened the door. Everybody was like, "Oh, praise mom, hi, praise mom, hi." I thought my son was sitting in one corner just chilling. And I said, "Ah, are you okay?" He just looked at me like, "Please don't come and spoil my parole here." That kind of thing. I was like, I now looked at him. I now said, "Ah, next thing, he just held my hand. Like, do you see any of your mates?" He just held my hand, moved me to the door, pushed me and closed the door. Like,
I mean, see, that's he said, having the time of my life.
no, 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 no. It was like trying to tell me that this is kid zone. Like, because seriously, there was no, he didn't have, there was no parents in that room now. So what's my own? What am I coming to do there? Like, it will go for parties and he'll be happy. It will be, again, because I have learned to make him understand that there's nothing wrong with you. You might have a pronunciation of a diagnosis does not make you less.
Yeah.
Again, that's the kind of motto. Again, remember I said, let your actions show your acceptance of the situation. So I don't say, oh, my son has autism. He has autism, but that is not his identity. He has autism, but he's also an artist. He has autism, but he's also thriving in math in his class. He has autism, but he's also an amiable, friendly person.
Yeah.
He has autism, but that doesn't limit what he can do. Again, you asked me a question, how does he communicate? I leave him in the house. I travel and I leave him in the house. He's there with the carer in the house. He needs food. He will tell you he wants this. He knows what he can have. Again, he's a visual learner. There's a timetable, a food timetable on the fridge. If there's something he likes, he will tell you what he will read. He can read and he will read what he wants from the table. If you offer him something and he doesn't, he will say, no, he doesn't want that. This is what he likes. And he will tell you what he likes. Again, but we didn't get there in a day. It's a series of steps that got us here. Remember that I said he lost his skills, his communication skills. He lost
Yeah.
all the words that he had gained as of when he was 2.
20 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was baby babble. When I say baby babble, he was, yes, now he can get, thank you. He can use the microwave. He can use the microwave. In fact, now what we do is that he cooks. Like when he wants to have pancakes and stuff, he will stay
Yeah.
with me. He's mixing his things for pancake, and he's like, the only thing I'm doing is making sure that the gas, I turn it on by myself because I think, God beg you, I don't want explosion in my house. But you get what I'm trying to say. Again, I said
Definitely.
to people, there's nothing wrong with his hand, so I will teach him how to use it. Autism does not mean that he has a physical disability. Yes, there are some children with an autism diagnosis that have a concurring diagnosis. So, but that is not his case. So, why am I the one putting a limitation that his
On his
diagnosis
ability.
hasn't put on him? And that's what I say to parents. Teach the child. If the child, autism does not mean I cannot learn or I'm not, unteachable. It means that you have to I would learn differently. The way I would learn, the way I would engage is just different from the normal thing that you're expecting to see. And so, let me show you how you can help me. Again,
Okay.
remember I started with saying that when I was in that space, I realized that people were helping me, but they were not speaking my language. And so I started to tell them how I wanted to be helped. So it's just me translating that to my son. He shows me how he wants to be helped. So it's child-led for a reason. Where are you struggling? All right, now let's augment where you're struggling. Exactly. We limit them based on our fears instead of letting them fly. I understand that the world is not nice, the world is mean. However, when we are being too afraid to let them fly, how do they know that there's other places beyond these small walls that we have caged them in?
Yeah.
They
Very-
won't know.
And it's important that we have these conversations because a lot of times the limitations is not on their part, it's on our part. We don't,
Yeah.
a lot of neurotypical siblings and parents tend to not expose neurodivergent children to that because they might have a fear or think of something or just weigh their abilities, and a lot of times we undermine what they can do. and the resulting effect of that is just a lot of limitation and inability to properly express themselves. Um, we'll be wrapping up in a bit, but I don't want us to leave without talking about the cultural Nigerian context of autism here in Nigeria. There's a lot of misconception, there are a lot of myths that needs to be debunked. A lot of these conversations are not had properly because people a lot of time misconstrue stories. People who lack understanding, a lot of people that lack understanding say a lot, and people that have understanding do not say a lot. Now we have you here, somebody who has the right amount of understanding. Let's address autism in a Nigerian cultural context. What do you think as Nigerians should know better? People should know better about this situation to ensure that they are kinder, they are more receptive, they are more intentional about this, about dealing with people, managing with people on the spectrum.
The first thing I'll say is that because you see a child that has autism does not mean that it's the mother's fault. You know, it's just like in the Bible when it says that the child was born blind, and then and then Jesus turned and says, who was at fault here? Was it the mother's sin or the father's sin? Again, I'm very religious, so I don't know how I even went 1 hour without quoting the Bible.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, but again, throwing it back, it's very, very important for people to understand that autism is not a parent's fault, it's not the mother's fault, it's not the mother's fault, it's not the father's fault, right? So very, very important to say that out there. So when you see a parent struggling with a child with autism, be kinder with your words. If you don't have anything to say, best don't say anything, right? You see a child, having a meltdown and the mother is flustered. If you can, condole a place for the person, to have a quiet space. But if you can't, right, move on. Your staring is already like shooting daggers on an overstimulated mother in that situation. So don't add that to it. And another thing I would like to say is when people hear autism, the first thing they say is the first thing that comes to their mind is that child is retarded or that child can't learn. Autism does not equal mental retardation. Autism does not mean that you have a learning disability, right? It's very, very important. Yes, we do have quite a large percentage of children, of individuals on the spectrum that do have learning disability, but autism does not equate learning disability. So you see a child with autism does not immediately mean that within your classroom as a teacher, you cannot help that child to learn. What it means that that child will learn differently. It is up to you as a teacher, as an educator, to find out how that child learns and help that child in that space. Very important. Autism does not equate that that child does not have empathy, or that child cannot be friendly, or that child cannot make friends. So it is important that you extend an invitation when you're extending invitations for parties, for events, for whatever, to that child. And then you can probably engage the child's mother and say, I invited so and so for this party. I know that you might have certain preference. What they help that help may not be welcome sometimes. Yes, be a helping hand when you see a mother
Pastor,
struggling.
please go ahead. I really like for you to end up this chain of thought. We'll get back to the comments, but just here, please go ahead.
Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, so you extend an invitation to the parent, to the child, and say, and then engage the mother. Oh, excuse me, I've invited so and so to this party. What accommodations can I put in place? Does he have a particular meal that he doesn't like? and then that woman, that mother will feel included in that space. And guess what? Because you've done that, that woman probably just needed some time out to just even relax, or just to know that a child is seen and accepted within the community. That does a lot to the woman's psyche, or the parent. Again, I say woman all the time, but we've seen situations whereby it's the father that is taking it upon himself. So again, it's not a gender role thing, as opposed, sometimes the mother is still struggling to get to the space of acceptance, but the father is already there and is moving along. Does not mean that, only mothers should be responsible. It's in a space where the two of them are available. Then both of you can do it together. It's very important. Again, autism does not equate that the child must be aggressive. Again, I've heard someone say, when you say, my child is autistic, the first thing you say, it must be very aggressive. What is behavior like? Not every child is aggressive. Again, when you see a behavior is just communication. It's a way the child is communicating. Maybe in time past, he has learned that when I do certain action, these are the results I get, right? And so he has learned to communicate his frustration through that. And that is where the intervention comes in place, to help him choose the right way to communicate or to express his emotion without resulting to that, right? What else is there? I'm not going with all the regular, but I'm just trying to go with, from a parent's perspective, from a lived experience. Because again, if you want to see all those, what you want to debunk, it's plenty on the internet. But this is from a parent, from a lived experience, telling you how best autism is, what it truly means to me, as opposed to what you see. Another one is the first thing they tell you when you say my son is autistic. They say, he must be a genius. What's his talent? Not all children on the autism spectrum are savants. It doesn't mean that they don't have a strength. It doesn't mean that you can't explore what their strengths are, but they are not all savants. So you have to be mindful. You hear some people, I tell someone, my child is autistic, you are very lucky. You have a special child. What makes it lucky? Have you lived a day in my shoe? Do you know what it is like to sometimes stay awake, crying and thinking, what's going to happen to my child? Trying to measure. Again, I'm not a preacher of comparing children and stuff like that. But then, my dear, sometimes I look at him and I look at his peers and I say, wow. But then I'm thankful for where we are. I'm quickly reminded of where we are coming from, of the journey, of the progress, and I am grateful. But again, it doesn't mean that I don't have those moments when I think, oh, wow. So don't be too quick as someone that's not walked in my mouth to quickly say, oh, you are very lucky to have a special child. Do you know how many sleepless nights? Do you know when my son is sick and I'm just too scared to go to the hospital because they are going to do a blood draw and I know that that's going to be a battle of eternal, I remember when he was 4, he had to go to the hospital for a stitch. Hello. 3 grown men held my son down. He was 4. Oh, yeah, I didn't even turn 4. He was going to turn 4. He hadn't turned 4. 3 grown men held him down. They gave him the highest level of anesthesia that it can give a child without putting him under, just to put in 5 stitches. I kid you not. We left the hospital. I strapped my son back in the car seat. Before we got home, which is like a 20 minutes ride, they had pulled out the stitches. So I sat down when I got home, looked back, saw blood dripping on his chest, his mouth, his lip that is just finished stitching, gaping open. And I was just like, I'm not going to take him back there to redo this trauma that I've just gone through. Laye, I'm not doing it. I sat down in the car and I thought to myself, yeah, he hadn't turned 4 then. So I thought to myself, I said, what's the worst that can happen? I called the doctor, I said, he has removed it. Oh. What's the worst that can happen? They said when it heals, that the thing will just heal in a funny way, it will be open, but it might have like his mouth might be funny looking. I said, see, that's the worst that can happen, because I'm not coming back to come and restitch that mouth. Not even the trauma that me as a mother went through when I saw one person holding his hand like this, one person holding his leg, one person holding him in one place, then the person stitching, another person holding him just to stitch. He now said I should come back again and witness that. No, 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 no. So his mouth will just be like this. It's okay. It will make for a good story. But we thank God the thing healed properly. So yeah, or the blood draw is a whoa. Even with we've done all the social story, he knows the doctor will only press here with this before you go to the, we have done it all. You don't mean that when you see that needle coming.
They see it live when it comes there.
You are now reminding me of the steps, the process. It's like, nah. So, see the trauma. When they tell me he's running a fever, I'm already sad. I'm depressed. I'm weak. And everything is just happening. No matter, this last week he was ill. And then they called me, oh, Priya is running a fever. Ooh, I started running a fever. By the time I got home, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, because I was like, say what? Are we going to go to the hospital? And that's the reality. So when you come and tell me that, I'm like, no, walk a mile in my shoe before you tell me I'm lucky.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You have highlighted so many recurring stereotypes. It's important. I love how you have particularly addressed it, as you said, from the experience of the mother, not just random stuff. It's not, people tend to assume that because the child is on the spectrum, he's aggressive or he's savant, as you said. And so I think it's important that people recognize that these children are significant individuals by themselves, and all of them possess different individual characteristics, particular or peculiar to them individually. And I like how you have addressed that. We've kept you on here for more than an hour. Enjoyed every bit of it thoroughly. We could go on and on and on, or we to your entire day. So we'll just wrap up with maybe have a lot more questions, but I just want to streamline them to 2 or 3 more very important ones.
Okay.
As the founder of Cradle Lounge, you do a lot of interaction, and as a parent navigator, you do a lot of interactions with parents here in Nigeria. What would you say is the most recurring opinion or recurring challenge parents with children on the spectrum face, and how can, as a society, can we help them navigate this issue?
How accepting is the educational system for my child? Will my child learn? What is my child learning? The first question is, will it end? Then you let them know that autism diagnosis is a lifelong diagnosis. Then they say lifelong. Is there a cure? Well, as of today, there's no cure. However, we don't know what will happen in future. Okay. Then you go to the educational system and then they go, how do I find the right fit? Which one is the right fit? And question is endless. But behind that question is the fear.
Yeah.
The fear. So if you can understand that and meet them at that level of that fear, it helps them a lot. You meet them there, you give them that support they need. It goes a whole long way, because what you then see is an hopeful parent ready to take that journey.
Yes.
So a lot of times when they're sitting across from you or you're interacting with them and they're asking you those questions, they're not asking you because they know that yes, they can probably find a school. But what is propelling all that question is the fear of the unknown. Where do I go? What do I do? How do I manage this? who would understand me? How do I start to advocate? And I tell them, from where you are, wherever you find yourself, wherever you are given the chance, sometimes advocacy doesn't require you talking. Talk when you have to, but
You have to.
let your actions preach the gospel. Do you understand? So that's what I tell people. I tell people that sometimes, oh, okay, I want to be an advocate, I want to advocate and all of that. But your actions are not advocating peace. Your actions are not advocating acceptance. Your actions are more like you are seated on the fence waiting for the next best thing. So every other person will come sit with you on the fence too, waiting for the next best thing. Right.
Brilliant, brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. It's um this the scary part of this journey is one where not just parents, right? A lot of caregivers, a lot of siblings. Some of the conversations we've had on this series, we've had siblings with people on spectrum. They experience these things, and as you said, which is one thing that we should continue doing. It's when you meet people at that place, they will recognize that their questions, their inquisitions, actually sponsored by fear of the long term. That way, you
Mhm.
can help salvage the situation. You can help convert that fear to hope and make them recognize
Absolutely.
that make them recognize that it's a journey, that it's a long term journey, and it should just brace up and enjoy every little bit of it. Um,
Absolutely.
Madam Shalakbe, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I want you to render to us final words. While like, what do you hope for your son in the future? Right? He's 11 now. There's still so many more years. You have done an exceptional job so far. There's so much more work to do. What do you envision for him? He's a brilliant artist, already selling more than 30 pieces on under 11. I mean, where was I at 11? I was still probably, I don't know if I can remember, but he's done so much. And you have played a significant role in ensuring that he is the young man he is now. But there's still so much work. What do you envision for him in the near future? And what do you say, as you say that, just final words for parents, final words for caregivers, people who have siblings, children on the spectrum, how they can channel their energy towards recognizing that this journey can leave you with a smile if you follow it through properly.
Yeah. So for my son, endless possibility. Endless. I tell him if you can dream it, it can happen. I tell people don't limit him based on his disability. If he has the strength and potential, let him explore it. I mean, he's not just an artist in terms of, paintings and stuff. He plays the piano and he plays it well. You know, I say I say that just so that you can understand that. And it's not just creativity that we're looking at or exploring for him. If he can access the curriculum, then we throw it at him. I mean, he does regular math. He does mental maths for, he's 11, but he does mental maths for ages 8 to 9. He does, so again, we expose him to endless possibility. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. I, I don't want, sometimes when I sit in IEPs and they're telling me something, I say, is this a limitation you're putting on him? Or is this a limitation you have experienced based on the challenges he's showing? So if it is not based on the challenges that he's experiencing in, and then when you say it's based on the challenges he's experiencing, I will tell you again, is this challenge only isolated to this area of his life? Or is this challenge in everything else? So if it's isolated to this space, we need to first find out, is it because he's not motivated to doing it? Right. What I would say to any parent that is already on that journey is learn everything about your child. When you learn your child, you understand your child, you can better advocate for his needs. because you are his first advocate.
Yes.
Till he's ready to self-advocate, you have to step into the gap for him. And for people that are just starting this journey, I would say to them, you need to learn to breathe. Take a moment and breathe. And then you have to actively fill in your jar of happiness, because you can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. So if you are not in that space of peace or that space of acceptance or awareness, or how do you want to start to radiate that to your surrounding? It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So breathe. Remember to take moments for yourself. Self-care is not a luxury for parents raising children with special needs. Self-care is so crucial, because that is why you will go to the play and the first thing they will say is do your own seatbelt before you do for the child.
Yeah.
If you have it, then you can help another person. Remember that we are mirrors to our children. They are looking at us for guidance. They are looking at us for direction. If you're always unhappy, your child will be unhappy.
Happy.
But if you have learned to find the joys in where you find yourself, your child will emulate that. And you will see that that child is always happy, always smiling, because mommy is always happy, mommy is always smiling. You are mirroring what you want your child to be. So when you remember that, you become more intentional with your choice of words, with the choice of people you surround yourself with, and the decisions you make every day. That's it.
Absolutely great. And he said, we have a question from Miss Prina Matthews, a very peculiar question. If you can share a tip or two with regards to this, she says, how do we deal with a blind child with autism? How do we deal with a visually impaired child who's also on the spectrum?
So there are two different conditions you're looking at. First, you have to understand, how do I deal with a blind child? What are the resources that I have to put in to help that blind child thrive? My child is autistic. What are his limitations? What are his areas of challenges? Because when you are looking at a blind child with autism, you are lumping the two together. Because he's blind does not make him autistic, and because he's autistic does not make him blind.
And
So those two things require different intervention approaches. So you have to first identify where you are, giving, what areas you're going to give intervention to. Then you can then now start to look at the tools to which I can use to give those intervention that would make them effective. For example, a blind autistic child would not benefit from visual aids. So if I'm deciding to say, oh, visual aids are very helpful for children on the spectrum, but my child is blind, how is that helpful? Do you understand? So those are two different conditions. So you have to meet them individually, not as one.
really said, I mean, well, I believe I haven't, I can't deny that it's been what can have as I said,